Are we ready to move to some offensive line talk for the Hokies?
Yeah. Let's move to VT corner because we did hire an offensive line coach. Matt Moore comes over from West Virginia. He was the assistant head coach and offensive line coach at West Virginia since 2020. In 2019, he was the offensive line coach and the co-OC. At least that's what I was picking up from his thing. The various biographies that are available online. This was a name that we'd been hearing about for a couple days.
Yep.
And I think it was widely considered to be like, that would be great if we could get this guy.
Yeah, no, I think this was it's hard to call an offensive line coach a home run hire, but this was the guy who was the A+ hire for Virginia Tech to make it. I think it just kind of worked out perfectly. I think it's a really, really good hire. Not only is it someone who is proven to have really good offensive lines, but proven to have good offensive lines at a program level like Virginia Tech and below Virginia Tech, right? Like he had Troy, had a bunch of all-conference guys. West Virginia, a bunch of all-conference guys. He's not doing it with elite stud recruits, with a massive recruiting budget, with getting all the transfers. He's doing it with program development, and that's what Tech really needs, because I don't care who's in the building. Virginia Tech's not going to be pulling in 4- and 5-star offensive linemen all the time.
Yes, it's very true. So you can kind of see how our offensive line will look if you just look at what he's had over the past 4 to 5 years at West Virginia, because it's a very similar level of recruit that we can both achieve at this stage in the game. Now, if we were to take our wins and our program up a level, maybe it would increase. But as recently as 2023, he was a Broyles nominee for having a fantastic offensive line. The Broyles Award goes to the top assistant in the country. He did not win, but he was nominated because the 2023 offensive line for West Virginia was awesome.
So
they were what it was. I had it 4th in rush yards per game, 14th in yards per carry, number 3 nationally in sacks allowed per game. So elite offensive line a year ago for West Virginia.
And, for the nerdy stats, 2023, 15th in EPA per rush, 2024, 34th in EPA per rush. And that's with losing a lot of guys. So I think this is somebody who has a consistent track record as well. It's been every year of every stop they've been able to run the football.
They have. Now, I will say his 2023 stats in terms of rush average, sacks allowed, it's a little bit of an outlier. Like, it's an extremely good year. And that also goes to your resume. But I am just saying that not every year is phenomenal as 2023. Like, for instance, this year, Virginia Tech ran for more yards per carry than West Virginia. We know that's because we had an extremely special running back.
Yeah.
So on a consistent basis, he's been solid, and he'll break through and have a phenomenal year. He's also extremely experienced. He's about 50 years old. He's coached at Texas Tech in the past. He's coached at a lot of power programs and knows the game. He's an adult in the room, as something we've been asking for Virginia Tech to have more of. And so I'm excited about the hire. And maybe the most exciting thing about Matt Moore, put a guy in the draft last year, Frazier, center, is on the Steelers now, was a 2nd-round pick. This year, he's got another kid in Millam who's probably going to be a 2nd-round or maybe even a 1st-round pick. So we're talking about back-to-back drafts where he's going to have an offensive lineman drafted. Not many coaches can say that, and especially not drafted in the top 2 rounds or 3 rounds, which I'm not sure where Millam will go, but it's going to be pretty high.
Yeah. And I would also say, again, Virginia Tech has not been able to recruit offensive line forever. I mean, never have. And I don't think that's going to change. So you need somebody who can work with what he's got, develop talent, find the right guys in the portal, find the right guys in recruiting. And, under Brent Pry, the first guy didn't care about any of that. And then the second guy couldn't recruit. And so it was like they needed to make a change there. And this was the A++ hire.
It was. I said on Twitter today that this is a big boy hire. Like, it really is. Like, if we're promoting Brent Davis, God love him, that's not big boy. This is another
Yeah.
power school's offensive line coach who was nominated for the Broyles Award. This is as good as Virginia Tech could ask for right now with the state of everything that's been going on. It's very good. And the fact that now he can lean on, hey, I'm putting guys in the NFL when he comes to Virginia Tech. Like, that's not even something he could lean on before necessarily.
Mhm.
So he will be at the peak of what he can sell and his coaching acumen when he gets to Virginia Tech. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. That's just where he is in his career. And so this was extremely good for us. And if you look at what David Cunningham put out in terms of the PFF stuff, he compared our run blocking grade and our pass blocking grade over the past 5 years to what WVU's been doing. And it's not even really close. Like maybe there's a year where one of ours is higher than the other one, but by and large, they killed us in every PFF score. So it's awesome. I'm very pleased with this.
He's got to get to work because he's got a lot of work to do, man. This offensive line is decimated through portal, through injuries, through the lack of, I I would say the lack of high level recruiting. And you have a bunch of guys here who are, we don't know. Like, we don't know
It's a
what some of these young
hodgepodge of
guys
who
are.
knows. Yes.
And we don't know what position they play. We don't know what stylistically they play.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, man? So he's got a lot of work to do. He
You
will, I think, going into the spring ball. I mean, this is looking way forward, Pete, but this is probably the one position group that you can grab the most of from spring ball. I think is going to be this group, like what they look like in terms of who's playing where, what do the makeups look like, who are the transfers they brought in, because it's probably the most important offseason position group Tech has.
Definitely. But did you see the fact that there are 3 West Virginia offensive linemen in the portal?
I'll take all three.
Yeah, give me all 3. I mean,
Mhm.
hopefully we can grab 1 or 2, but I have to imagine
And
one of
grabbing
those
it
kids
from
are,
West Virginia, especially after the last 2 games against the Mountaineers went like that, it does feel a little good.
yeah. We need to get at least one of those kids, and they're all massive kids. Like those are they weren't small gentlemen. The one I know they're offensive linemen, but like you know how some offensive linemen are young in their career and they're maybe
Mhm.
285. No, these guys were all like 315 or something. Get me a 1 or 2 of those guys, and I will be a very happy camper. We're still waiting on our DC and our strength and conditioning hire, but this is a good appetizer for those 2 things. So very pleased with the Matt Moore hire. Let's move to the guys that are coming back next year. We heard from Jaden Keller, Aiden Green, Keyshawn Burgos, Tucker Holloway, Kelvin Gilliam, and the most important one to me, Sam, Caleb Woodson.
Yep. Yeah, all good keeps. I think people are kind of annoyed with people announcing that they're coming back. I would just be happy they're coming back.
That's what I'm
Uh,
focusing on.
yeah, and it's, Caleb Woodson's a guy who I think, seems to have improved week over week since being at Virginia Tech. Jaden Keller is a guy who made a big step this year, has a lot of room to grow, but made a good step this year. Gilliam is a guy who came in as a transfer, played really well this year. All good gets, like, really important to keep those guys. Also think really important, Tucker Holloway, who's dealt with injuries. That's an important guy as a veteran to have in that wide receiver room.
We
Like,
needed Holloway to come back.
he's immediately going to have a team leadership role. And I think that's going to be really big for this team.
Yeah, his video was great that he put out. I told you how few veterans we have at wide receiver, and you throw in the All-American punt return status that he could get. He's vital. Like that was a huge keep. And Keller, there was a lot of talk about him, but you cannot deny the improvement that he showed this year. If we get these kids, Woodson and Keller, a really good linebacker coach, they could be phenomenal. They really
Mhm.
could. We could have a great inside linebacker year. Not exactly sure what's going to go on at Star. We're going to see what Caleb Spencer brings in the bowl game, but it's exciting because there's so much potential at that linebacker position again.
I would not. I would not assume Virginia Tech is going to run the same formation next year. I think they might mix some stuff up.
So that's what a topic that French and I discussed last week was this DC hire. is it within the Pry coaching tree to essentially run Bud's and Pry's system? Like Pry's system is more or less Bud's system. Like they're
Yeah,
very, very similar.
yeah,
And French was saying like the group of people that can run that and run that well is not the largest group in the coaching community.
yeah. I think the one thing that would point me to say that they might do something with a little bit different flavor is their inability to nail guys down to positions. I think it's a lot easier when you are recruiting at what Brent Pry was at Penn State, and you have the ability to bring in a bunch of just big time athletes. And you just kind of put them anywhere. You have a lot more to choose from. Virginia Tech, you're not going to have that amount of luxury. You have to be much more precise with your recruiting and where you position guys. And the fact that they struggled so much for 3 years now at where to put guys at linebacker, maybe they rethink how they run that position. I don't know.
It's possible.
On the same side, Xavier Deeby's in this program. Do you think he gets a shout for linebacker coach?
Yeah, I could see it happening because if they were to go with a DC that doesn't coach linebackers, for example, Poindexter doesn't coach linebackers, then you need a linebacker coach. And you could move Sean Quinn over potentially, but he's done a pretty good job where he is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Sam, I could see a DB getting that role if the DC that comes in doesn't coach linebackers.
Yeah. Yep. We'll see. We'll see.
But the Woodson one was huge. And getting Gilliam, I mean, I know we expect a lot of these guys come back, but you don't know until they tell you. You really don't.
Yeah,
so
you really don't.
Nice to see.
And it's gonna be hovering over that player all the way through to fall camp if they don't say that they are coming back.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say if they do make a video or the announcement that they're coming back, that there was probably like a payment involved. Like a lot of these videos are like Triumph
I think you can read
videos if you look at the logos. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think also, for some people who are maybe plugged into just Virginia Tech, I would point out that pretty much every other program is doing the same thing right now. Like, this is not a Virginia Tech specific phenomenon. And I also think if you look at Virginia Tech's transfer portal in and out, doing a whole lot better than some schools are, man. Yeah. A whole lot better, especially with a coordinator change.
And this was Les's comment on the O-line coach. He said, Matt Moore looks like a fantastic hire for OL coach. Hope he can bring a couple OL players with him. Our thoughts exactly, Les. Thank you for the comment. We are definitely hoping for that. The latest on the portal from the Hokies. We talked about Sherrod Koval with French. Went over that a little bit. So that was a nice addition at safety. I think because he was recovering from an ACL and bouncing between positions, he could play his best football with us of his career. Like, quite honestly, because he was playing well before he tore his ACL in 2023 and then had to play recovering from that last year. So I think that's a great addition in the safety room. We got another addition in the safety room, Sam, in Tyson Flowers from Rice.
Big time.
He's got a nice grade on 247.
Yeah, he was really good. He's been good at Rice for a few years now. Part of last year, they had a pretty darn good defense that he was a part of. And then this year, they struggled a little bit. But again, he performed really well. I think Tech feels a lot better right now than they did a few days ago at the defensive back spot, especially at the safety room. I think they'll still go out and try to get guys. I believe they got Quentin Reddish's younger brother as well.
Older brother,
excuse me.
Yes, Joe Reddish. He is the older brother of Quentin, who's on our team. He comes from D2 Wingate, and I think that's in North Carolina. Nick is the youngest brother, and Nick is like an 88 on 247 right now in the 26th class. So, and it was cool today because Quentin put out something like about all the brothers they've had at Virginia Tech, and maybe it was Joe, but whatever. They both were tweeting about it. So they get to play together. And if this helps us get Quentin, well, that would be icing on the cake. But I think it was Evan Watkins was saying, like, don't sleep on what Joe could bring to the table. Like he could, if nothing else, provide depth, but we need help at safety. And he's more of a veteran. He's got 2 years left, but he's more of a veteran. And it's just going to be fun to have, another set of brothers play for Virginia Tech.
And a guy named Flowers playing defensive back for Virginia Tech. It went pretty well the first time.
That's true. Tyson
Yeah.
Flowers, great name. Great name. And he may be more impactful than Koval, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say they're also kind of building out that safety room style athlete on defense, maybe more than just that room, pretty well with Flowers, with Koval, keeping Reddish. And you also have Caleb Spencer, who showed flashes this year, who's kind of that hybrid safety linebacker guy as well. So you do have some promise in that room. I think a lot of Tech fans felt like that was a skeleton crew going into next year.
It's interesting that a position where French he didn't pull punches on Pearson Prelu. Other people have been saying things about Pearson Prelu at the safety position as the coach there, but we bring in 2 safeties. So it kind of seems like all is status quo. Now it might not be that, but like, hey man, if Pearson or whoever else is going out and bringing in some talent that we desperately need at that position, well, then maybe they should be the coach. But French was just saying in terms of the positioning of how the guys were playing this year and some of last year, safety wasn't one of our stronger positions, and I'll leave it there.
Yeah. I think rush defense from the safeties, good. Pass defense from the safeties, bad. And that's 50% of the game. So that's like, but it also does point to me, I don't want to read too much in between the lines, and makes me believe that they're maybe not going after a safety's primary defensive coordinator. That's just kind of my vibe that I'm getting there. But who knows, man? The transfer portal is a weird thing.
And I don't think you can base your DC hire on who any of your assistants are.
Yeah. And I would also say, I don't know how forthcoming schools are with transfer portal recruits at this time about coaching changes.
Yeah.
And that's not Virginia Tech specific. It's kind of Virginia Tech related, but I don't think that's a Virginia Tech phenomenon. Like other schools are kind of doing this too. You have to just try to get guys in the building and then make the coaching hires as they come.
All right. So let's go to another position that we loaded up on in terms of just the portal. 2 running backs, Sam, come in pretty much back to back last week. Terrion Stewart from Bowling Green was the first one. He's an 87 on the 247 transfer rankings. And then Marcellus Hawkins, someone that was on no one's radar screen for the most part, a D2 guy. He also comes in. They both have like pretty good size in terms of their weight. Terrion Stewart is 5'9", 220. Bowling Green, more like bowling ball. Am I right?
He's got a little Lee Suggs to him. I'll tell you, if you haven't watched it, like just YouTube, Twitter, search his name, his highlights are insane. Like he is running over dudes, stiff arm, running away from people. He terrorized Georgia Tech a couple years ago. He did really good in the MAC. And I know you're saying, oh, it's like a MAC guy, whatever. He was dominant, like absolutely dominant. I think he is the best pickup that they've had so far. I think he is a day one. I think he's a day one starter. I think he's the guy. You bring him in and he's the guy. I'm really excited about that one. It is a room though. You need depth because guys get injured all the time.
Yep.
And Tech probably
did 2 of them, I guess, because we weren't necessarily sure how many you need, but like we only had 4 before this. So now this makes our running back room 6, and that's probably about the right number.
Yeah. And you have like Overton as a guy who's going to be a true freshman. I think you're really excited about his potential, but you're not going to go into a season being like, yeah, this true freshman is going to get 30% of our carries. It's not a recipe for success usually. So
strategy. No,
I
love Overton too, but I agree with you.
Yep.
If you look at Stewart's career, Sam, it's got over 2,000 yards and 6 yards a carry over the entire tenure. 6 yards a carry.
Pretty nasty.
Like that's not normal. Like normally you struggle a little bit your freshman you get your feet under you. Like this year, he ran for 5.6, and for his career, he's at 6.0. So
Yeah.
like this was less than some of the other years, and Bowling Green was a very feisty team this year, as we talked about many times. So
Mhm.
I think it's almost 400 carries in his career, 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, and he did have like a couple injuries this year. Like I don't think he played in the game against Penn State. But I do remember him playing in the game against Texas A&M. So I'm going to look up the stats from that game
If you're
as well.
expecting him
Yeah.
to catch out of the backfield, he hasn't done it. He has like one catch a season. So maybe he will going forward, but he hasn't shown that skill to this point. I'm assuming he can block.
You would hope so. I mean, goodness gracious, at that size, you hope so. Yeah, it looks like he got hurt at the beginning of the season there for a little bit, but came back and had some really good games. 15 carries for 150 versus Western Michigan. He had 21 carries for 99 against Toledo, 25 carries for 124 yards against Kent State. Like, those aren't great defenses, but he's a workhorse back. And I think that feels really good for Virginia Tech.
And with both of these guys, whether it's Hawkins or Stewart, you got to trust this staff. Like,
Yeah.
it went in and he was great. And I know it's not a large sample size, but like I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that based on what I've seen from Stewart and just the highlights and stats that I've been able to look and watch, I'm going to trust him on Hawkins as well. This kid ran for 6.7 yards per carry in 2023 and over 1,000 yards. I know it's D2, but he didn't run for 2 yards a carry. He ran for nearly 7. So you upgrade his offensive line and maybe he could do 5 yards a carry at this level and he provides us some depth. I don't know, but I'm going to trust the staff on both of those guys. And it's exciting because I think Stewart is really going to be valuable. The last position we haven't talked about, well, there was a couple corners too, I guess. Talked about Reddish, but we didn't talk about Isaiah Brown Murray coming over from East Carolina. He's 5'9", 192. And I don't know a ton about him, but corner was a definite need. And he's probably going to provide some depth, if nothing else. And then on the D line, we got Priester from Hampton. And what stands out about him is just his size.
He's huge. He's huge. And what also stands out about him and the kid from ECU, multiple years of eligibility left. So those are a couple guys who you can bring in and get in the program and have a couple years of. And I know that's crazy, right? A player playing for more than 1 year in a program, but feels good there. Defensive tackle, they needed a guy. Corner, they needed a guy. This staff has a lot of flaws, man, but give them credit. The changes made this offseason and the transfer portal additions have been very poignant, very strategic. It feels like everything has been purposeful this offseason. Maybe not moving at the speed that it needs to, but definitely feel like they have a strategy going forward this offseason. Now all they have to do is win the games, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, listen, none of these guys. I love Stewart. I like the addition of Priester and his size, and Flowers is exciting. None of these are like, oh, we got
Game
Singleton
breakers.
from Georgia Tech. It's not, we haven't gotten a star quarterback or something like that. But that's the beauty of what our staff has done over the last couple of years. They're not great at everything, but they're good at evaluating out of the portal for the most part. And you talked about multiple years, like APR played multiple years for us. Felton, Lane, Tootin, Gilliam is going to play another year for us. Drones is going to play multiple years for us. That's what you want. You don't want your coaches going out and getting 1 year mercenaries. That you want them selling them on the program so they can develop further. Cunningham, we haven't heard that he's leaving off the O line. Like he might get a chance to contribute next year for us, and that would be nice because we need offensive line.
I think there are some portal additions that will be made in the next few weeks, especially in the offensive line, and then I think there's a whole window after spring.
Yeah,
and that's usually when you can get the big time talent from a big program who's not going to start and go somewhere else kind of movement. So
that's
there's
exactly
a lot of
when we got APR and when we got Curtis Perry. It didn't work out, but it's also when we got Gilliam, right?
Yep. Yeah. So there's time. I think the defensive coordinator thing is interesting. We'll see. I mean, I don't have any inside information on that, Pete, but it makes me believe that that person is still coaching, whether that's at college football or
I
whether
think
it's in the
so.
NFL.
I
Don't know
think
who
so.
that is. Could be anybody. Um, so it makes me think that they have someone there.
I think they know who the DC is. And I just think that they could still be playing, or they're choosing to roll it out after the O-line thing got rolled out. But right now at DB, I think we're set. I don't think we're finding
Mhm.
any more DBs. We're bringing in a bunch freshmen, and then we're bringing in a bunch here. We have 18 DBs rostered for next year. I think we're good there. Now, things are changing with the 85 to 105 thing. What we've heard is that Tech's going to come in around 90, maybe a little
Mhm.
over 90. But nevertheless, we're sitting at 77 scholarships right now. So we still have 13 more. If we're doing the 90 thing, we have
Mhm.
13 more. And you're gonna give nods to some guys. Like maybe George Balance gets a Scully. Maybe some
Mhm.
other guys that were walk-ons previously will get Scullies. But we still got a lot of work to do in the portal. And I'd like to see, Sam, at least one offensive lineman come in before this window closes.
You would really like to have those guys for spring ball.
Yeah.
Like, really, really would like to have those guys for spring ball, and I also think fans should know, like, somebody's gonna leave after spring ball.
Yes.
That's kinda how this thing works, so I I would expect a little bit of movement here. I'd expect a little in-staff shuffling. Brent Pryce said that a couple times now, that that's kind of a direction that they think they're gonna go. Whatever that means, I'm not sure,
Mhm.
but, we'll see. We also didn't mention Gunter Brewer, wide receivers coach, advisor, assistant
Freak
thing,
facts.
high school relations guy. He took the wide receiver job at Marshall. It's a place that he previously coached. He coached Randy Moss at Marshall. Um,
His claim to fame. He's going
y-
back.
yeah, uh, I I've heard it's a big loss. I didn't see it on the field.
Wide
I,
receivers weren't that great this year.
he's coached some good wide receivers, but I think Pete, you and I could coach Randy Moss. I I, I
Yeah.
have full faith.
There was multiple reasons why I say the thing about the wide receivers. Like I have a lot of hope for the position because of what Fontel Mines has done and the way he's recruited.
Mm,
But I think we were all disappointed with the production we got out of the wide
yeah.
receivers. Part of that falls in the scheme, part of that falls on the O line, part of that falls on Kyron Drones. And so uh, I think it's going to continue to be one of our strongest positions because of the talent we're bringing in and because of Fontel Mines. We need to have less drops next year and we need to get more production. Speaking of wide receiver, Sam, the last thing I'll say on the portal, we are pursuing Sam Phillips out of Chattanooga.
Good strong name.
Yeah, it's a good name. It's a good name. So this guy seems like he could be a Virginia Tech lean. There was an article put out today on him. We need at least, I think, one more veteran wide receiver, and I think this would be it.
Yeah. Jalen Lane-esque player, uh, kind of that hybrid slot outside guy. I I think he would be a really good addition. I don't think he's a game breaker by any means. And again, you don't know how the FCS to FBS transition is so big for some guys. You don't really know how they're going to react to it, but he would be a really good pickup. He was very productive at Chattanooga. He fits the profile of what's been successful in this offense before.
Mhm.
So, I, sure, why not?
All right, so we'll have a bowl preview coming to you guys. I think it's Sunday night or Monday morning will get dropped in your feed, but we're going to combo it up with the Sons of Saturday boys. You're going to get
Yeah,
four of us talking about the
I,
bowl, me, Sam, Pat, and Billy. That's going to be fun. We're probably going to record that on Sunday after Christmas. So you'll get that Monday leading into bowl week. And that's we still got to do some research, Sam. We got to figure out who's playing
I,
for both teams.
yeah, I think we have a decent idea who's playing for Virginia Tech. Minnesota, I haven't dug a lot on. I will say, PJ Fleck historically as a coach and Minnesota historically as a program take bowl games seriously. They're not a big opt out program,
Yeah.
so I think you're going to get a full swing from the Gophers. Should be interesting. These two teams really even across the board. So we'll see how the Hokies stack up with a bit of a depleted roster against the mostly full strength Gophers.
Yeah, and we don't know exactly where our roster stands. There's still a few guys we're waiting to hear on, but I worry about the offensive line, Sam, because a lot of
Yeah.
we've already lost a couple
Yeah.
transfers or seemingly, and the older Moore brother may also not be playing. That's the biggest thing to me. I love the idea of just letting Pop go out there and
Yep.
fling it around.
And I think Tech has a lot of guys who are going to be playing for spots next year, and I think they'll have the crowd advantage. And we'll see. I mean, bowl games are weird, man.
They
They're
are.
weird.
You don't know what could happen. So let me do a quick beer review before we do our last ad read and talk a little bit about the spreads on round 2. But I mentioned Christmas morning. This is the Kentucky Christmas morning. A little hard to get in the screen here, but they serve it in this. I found these medicine bottles of it at my local store last year. So this is a 2023 Kentucky Christmas morning, and this is their regular Christmas morning beer conditioned on the bourbon barrels. And you do get the vanilla, the coconut, the oak, ginger, vanilla, honey, cinnamon, like any kind of those Swedish flavor, Christmassy flavors, not Swedish, but sweet-ish, come
You said
through on
Swedish.
come through on this thing. But the regular Christmas morning is a phenomenal beer. I had that last week. I don't think I even talked about it. I might have been when I was doing the French interview, but like we were talking, that ended. I was like, I didn't talk about my beer. Regular Christmas morning is awesome. It's something that Beer Control on Twitter has mentioned is like his favorite Hardywood beer. But the Kentucky is the stronger version of that. It's 12.2%. Might be why I'm having a hard time crafting thoughts at this stage because I'm getting close to the bottom here. But it is, if not the best beer that Hardywood puts out, it is a close second. It is so good. I share this with my brothers every year. I'll bring a few of these. I got 8 of these bottles. This is the first one I've cracked from 2023. So I finally got into them. I'll take some down this weekend, but it's so good. I highly recommend the Kentucky Christmas morning. And it honestly works as a breakfast beer. Like it's a little strong, yes, but if you're a beer lover and you're with your family and everyone's opening gifts, this is a great accompaniment. I mean, we're talking about if you want to talk about an untapped score, it's as close to a 5.0 as you're going to get from me. Like it is right up there. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I think the Christmas beers are very close to gimmicky. Like they toe that line a lot of times. And when breweries get it right, it works so well. So I'll have to try that one out. I'll have to find some. I'll be up in Richmond so I can get some more Richmond specific beers.
Dude, you got it. Yeah. Because normally what they do is even after Christmas, you'll be able to find this even in like the Wegmans or Kroger, you'll be able to find the Kentucky Christmas morning. And these little bottles are great because you can store them, save them for like up to 5 years, and they're still going to be fresh and age really well. Like sometimes they're better a year later. So that's why I purposely haven't opened any of these since I got them at the end of last year. But they also they put these on some roasted coffee beans as well. So you get some coffee notes. Like it's so many flavors, and yet it just combines so well. So yes, the Kentucky Christmas morning, it's a 5.0.
Beautiful.